Shalom, this is Daniel Stern coming at you from the Netivyah Bible Instruction Ministry building in downtown Jerusalem. And you might have caught our short break-in news yesterday about the new proposed deal coming out between by the United States, Egypt, and Qatar regarding the Israel-Gaza war and the future of the Israel-Arab relations in the Middle East. So that was just a brief word about it to let you know it's happening, and now I'd like to go in a little bit more about that idea and more background to it. So first of all, one has to say that since the war began, there has been pressure on Israel to relinquish control of the Gaza Strip after the war to the Palestinian Authority, the PA. And the pressure has come from Europe and from the United States, as well as from the Western part of Israeli society. And that, of course, it makes no sense whatsoever, because the Palestinian Authority, like Hamas, wishes to destroy Israel, and has said so many, many times, and supports terrorism against Israel, and supports Hamas, and at no point in the last 105 days has it condemned the actions of the Hamas on October 7th, but rather has supported them, not only in word, but also in deed. The Palestinian Authority pays a monthly salary to terrorists, including Hamas terrorists. Not that there should be any difference. A terrorist is a terrorist, a killer is a killer. And the Palestinian Authority pays them a stipend. And the more death toll their attack had, the higher their salary. It's inhumane and it's barbaric, but it's what's been happening for years, and nobody cares. Israel has, from time to time, made efforts to crack down on the Palestinian Authority's payment to terrorists by cutting part of the taxes that Israel collects for the Palestinian Authority in what's known as Area C, which is parts of Judea and Samaria that are governed by Israel regarding its civilian government, as well as security government, unlike Area B, which is Israel's security but Palestinian civilian government, and Area A, which is fully under the control of the Palestinian Authority. On a side note, if one looks at school curriculums and other forms of media, you'll see that the Palestinian Authority strongly supports terrorism and the killing of Jews. But going back to what we were talking about, Israel attempts to cut some of the tax money that they collect for the Palestinian Authority as in lieu, or the sum that they would give to terrorists. And what generally happens is the Palestinian Authority prioritizes paying their killers and murderers, and then cuts those lacking funds from other civilian needs. Because if they don't pay their terrorists and their killers, then they will not be supported by the Palestinian people, those who we call innocent civilian non-combatants, those who support terrorism, those who want to see all the Jews dead. And if the Palestinian Authority does not pay blood money to terrorists, then they will lose support of the Palestinian innocent civilians. But again, that too is a matter for another time. On a side note, like what happened in post-World War II Japan and post-World War II Germany, there needs to be a process of de-radicalization. Yes, Nazism still exists today, but it is in the fringes. It is not mainstream. And that too is what needs to happen with the jihadist and radical Islam. It needs to be pushed to the fringes. But going back to what we were talking about. So, from the very beginning, the United States and Europe have been pushing and encouraging Israel to agree that they will hand over the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority. By the way, for any of you who missed it, that happened already. In 2005, Israel handed over the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority. And then there were elections within the Gaza Strip, and the majority there voted Hamas in power, followed by Hamas having a bloody revolt and combat where they murdered many members of the Palestinian Authority, and they took over. So those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. Well, we are being asked to repeat the past, and I hope and pray that our government isn't foolish enough to do so. On a related note, that is the reason there have not been free and democratic elections in Judea and Samaria, known as the West Bank by some, since that election in 2006 when the Hamas took over in Gaza Strip, because the Palestinian Authority knows that the, once again, innocent, non-combatant civilians actually support the Hamas. So they haven't had an election there since then. Anyways, going back to what we're talking about. There has been pressure to give the Gaza Strip to the PA, despite the fact that they're terrorists and support terrorism. But now there's a new idea being formed, a deal between the United States, Egypt, and Qatar, where there'll be a 90-day truce, ceasefire, cessation of the hostilities. And during that time, first, the Hamas will release a whole bunch of prisoners, probably the non-IDF prisoners that are left. And in return, Israel will release thousands of Palestinian prisoners, most of them, of course, murderers with blood on their hands, as opposed to the Hamas kidnapped hostages, which are truly innocent. Then in the next stage, the Hamas will release all the female soldiers, and that will result in Israel removing forces from the Gaza Strip, as well as ceasing their drone surveillance of the area. And the final stage that wasn't yet discussed as far as I'm aware at the time of this video was that obviously the rest of the male soldiers would be released and the violence would come to a permanent end. Now this of course goes against what the Israeli government has been claiming are the goals of the war from its start, which is to topple the Hamas and to make sure that there's no danger from Gaza. But, and here's a but, this negotiation is supposed to include an alternative means of rule in the Gaza Strip, that someone else who is not Hamas will take over. I assume that once again they are referring to the Palestinian Authority, but I hope not. I hope there's another idea in mind. In any case, both sides, the Hamas and Israel, have currently rejected this idea, which I suppose for any negotiation is as good a place to start as any, because if one side fully accepts it, then you know that the idea isn't a good one. In any case, of course, that the general idea that are back in this is that this will lead to the end of this war, followed by continuing and resuming the peace, I don't want to say peace, the normalization talks between Israel and Saudi Arabia, an idea that along with a Palestinian state is supposed to end all conflict in the Middle East. There's one little flaw with this plan. One teensy-weensy tiny flaw. Well, actually there's a lot, but I'm going to focus on one. One little flaw is that this ignores the fact that Iran is currently causing hostilities in many places that have nothing to do with Israel and the Palestinians. For example, just the other day, Iran bombed Pakistan and Pakistan bombed Iran in return. There are very high tensions and there have been conflict between Iran and Azerbaijan. certainly we can see that the Iranian forces, and you can call them however you like, proxies, Shia militaries and whatnot, but they take their orders directly from Iran. The Iranian forces in Iraq are attacking the United States on a regular basis. The Iranian-backed Houthi militia are attacking the shipping lanes of the Red Sea. All of these have nothing to do with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So, the Middle East is not going to become a little kindergarten of flowers and daisies as soon as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict ends, because there are more forces involved. Just look at the Syrian civil war with its hundreds of thousands of dead and millions of refugees. Israel's not involved in that. Well, it is in a minor way, but not in any significant way that affected its happening or its course of action. In any case, there can be much more to be said about this, but let's take a pause, a breather, and say that we hope and pray that external pressure by the United States, the European Union, and others does not cause Israel to make the foolish mistake of ending the war prematurely, of not toppling the Hamas, and certainly of handing over the Gaza Strip to the Palestinian Authority terrorists. Because those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. Thank you very much. Daniel Stern.